Yesterday, 2 Turkish fighter jets shot down a Russian aircraft over Syria. The Russian plane crashed 4 kilometers inside Syria, and both pilots, even though they ejected, were killed, reportedly by Muslim militias on the ground, who are allies of Turkey, shooting at the pilots as they fell helplessly down by parachute. Now, Turkey claimed the Russian jet crossed over into Turkish territory, and the map they produced suggests that indeed did happen for a brief moment. But the plane was shot down when it was back over Syria. Today, Sergey Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, acknowledged that the Russian jet had indeed been over Turkish territory, but for a grand total of 17 seconds.
It was there in the Turkish airspace for 17 seconds.
Lavrov also pointed out that Russia and Turkey had set up a hotline for use in any crisis involving the two countries, and yet the Turks did not contact Russia on the hotline. They shot first, after 17 seconds of provocation. No caution, no phone call.
There was a hotline established between the Russian defense and the Turkish defense, but it was never used either yesterday or before.
I hate to agree with Lavrov because he is Putin's sledgehammer around the world, but it is hard to disagree with him when he suggests this was a deliberate act by the Turks, shooting after 17 seconds, not calling the hotline first. And this curiosity, Lavrov points out that in an hour-long conversation that he had with his Turkish counterpart, Turkey claims it didn't know whose jet it was, but shot anyways. Lavrov points out there are a lot of jets flying around Syria these days, Russian and Syrian, but also American, British, and French, and I might add 6 Canadian CF-18s. Did Turkey really shoot down a plane that it hadn't identified?
He also said that Turkish dispatchers and pilots were not aware of the fact that it was a Russian plane, because there are Syrian warplanes too. But also I'd like to add that there are NATO warplanes. So even though it was there for 17 seconds, if you hit any plane, you could actually hit a plane of your allies.
Now, Lavrov is a master of propaganda. He's Putin's loyal and cunning diplomat, with more cunning in his little finger than John Kerry or Justin Trudeau or Barack Obama have in their whole brains. I do not want to agree with a man who has propped up Iran or stuck a dagger in Ukraine, but it is hard to dispute his conclusion. This wasn't an accident. This was a deliberate action, a deliberate setup. Turkey didn't really shoot down an unidentified plane that spent 17 seconds in its airspace. Turkey shot down, knowingly, a Russian jet on purpose because the Russians had been attacking Muslim militias on the ground in Syria that Turkey supports, including the Islamic State itself.
And so what happened yesterday followed an airstrikes, high-precision airstrikes on the carriers, on the trucks transporting oil and petroleum products.
We showed you that footage on another story on The Rebel, Russian jets attacking and blowing up hundreds of oil tanker trucks operated by the Islamic State terrorist group. The Islamic State produces that oil, trucks it to Turkey, and sells it as a huge source of revenue. Russia blew up a lot of those trucks. It's bizarre to me that the US or Canada or other Western allies hadn't done it before. It's also bizarre to me that no one has blown up the Islamic State's headquarters in their capital city of Raqqa. I just don't get it. But finally, Russia blew up the Islamic State's oil trucks, and Russia is shooting up Turkey's militant allies on the ground in northern Syria. This was Turkey's way of fighting back. Lavrov said that Turkey wants a no-fly zone to protect the militants, including presumably the Islamic State terrorists, a no-fly zone so that these people on the ground, these militias, these terrorists, can act with impunity.
This place is also home to the infrastructure of the militants, including weapons depots, command centers, supplier centers. And so I asked my counterpart, does this mean, given the fact that Turkey has so much attention to this area and they also asked to set up a buffer zone in this area, does it mean that Turkey wants to give shelter, so to speak, to protect this infrastructure and make it immune to any airstrikes?
Let me say this again. Putin is a bully. He is destroying civil liberties and democracy in Russia. He's invaded Russia's neighbors from Georgia to Ukraine. He's aiding Western enemies like Iran, but it is hard to dispute his assessment of Turkey, and there really is no need to dispute it. For years, Turkey's authoritarian ruler, Erdogan, has moved Turkey towards Islamic fascism, undoing the Western secularism that Kemal Ataturk had brought to the country about a century ago. Turkey actually was once Israel's ally in the region short years ago. Now it's barely disguised enemy. Erdogan has used his air force to attack the Kurds, the closest thing to liberal Democrats in the region, the only people on the ground actually killing the Islamic State and driving them out. I like the Kurds for many reasons, especially that they are not radical Muslims. They treat women as equals, even letting women serve in their Peshmerga militias fighting the Islamic State. But back to Lavrov. He said he doesn't want to go to war with the Turkish nation, but he's outraged with the Turkish government. All right, fair enough. What's he going to do, though? Go to war over this? I mean, Turkey is lucky it doesn't share a border with Russia, or there might be a few more incursions, Ukraine style, going on right now. A lot of Russians do business in Turkey. They vacation there. There's a lot of trade, and of course, Turkey controls the Straits of Bosphorus that lets Russian ships cross from the Black Sea out to the Mediterranean Sea. It's unlikely that Russia would want a real military fight with Turkey. It would be dangerous and costly, and there is that detail that Turkey is a member of NATO. More likely, Russia is just going to pound the living daylights out of all of Turkey's allied militias in Syria, especially the Turkmen brigades who reportedly killed the Russian pilots as they parachuted down. It's tough to argue with shooting back at those militias. Both Barack Obama and Justin Trudeau were asked which side of this spat they were on, and they both said Turkey.
Turkey, like every country, has a right to defend its territory and its airspace.
That we stand by our NATO ally, absolutely.
Well, that is the right answer. We are Turkey's ally. That is what the NATO treaty says we are. But that's my point. Why is Turkey, who is an ally of ISIS, a funder and supporter of Muslim terrorism, an authoritarian regime, hostile to the West, hostile to the Kurds, hostile to democracy, why are we allies with Turkey anymore? And I don't want to take Russia's side, but I don't want to be dragged in on Turkey's side either. I don't want any side of that quarrel between two brutal thugs. Canada should make it clear to Turkey that we will not come to Turkey's aid if Russia responds with the justification that it seems to have. Turkey made sense in NATO 50, 60 years ago when we needed all the allies we could get against Russia. Now it's Turkey that's picking fights, and Turkey that's aiding our enemies in the Islamic State. Time to kick them out of NATO. They've chosen their real friends, Muslim militants. We should have the self-respect to choose our real friends a bit more carefully too. Kick them out of NATO. Let's see how brave they are then. For TheRebel.Media, I'm Ezra Levant.